you all for coming to this June 2021 IGEL Community Meetup. I'm really excited about this one. We have a great topic today, unified communications. And then we have another amazing topic, the IGEL Community GitHub site. We started this GitHub, Christian Andrillian and I started this thing 3 years ago. I don't even know why we started. I think we just like, oh, we need a GitHub. And Ron Neher came around and just took this thing to the stars and back. And so really excited to introduce you guys to this because a few people know what GitHub is, a few people know how to use it, and they love it. And once you do understand, it's really amazing. What's Ron done is really amazing. So let's start moving forward. So that's sort of what we're going to talk about today. We have the guys on the line and we're going to hand it over to Udo and Lars here in a second. Of course, we have a lot of upcoming events. Please join one of our upcoming events. You know, if you're a German speaker, you want to hear this session in German, we have that coming up next week with the same group, Udo and Lars. It won't be the GitHub piece, just the unified communication piece. And then in July, and then we have another event in June too. We have a Login VSI and IGEL, and I'm really looking forward to this event. We're bringing Login VSI on to really do a technical deep dive in how a solution like Login VSI works with IGEL and to overcome and solve and address this sort of fast changing desktop world that we live in today. So we're really looking forward to this. We've been putting it together. It's going to be not a vendor pitch. It's really a deep dive technical session. I think you guys are going to love it. July, we have another really amazing event. We have a Citrix CTP, Rodi, coming on, and he's going to dive in. He's a protocol expert, and he's going to dive into user experience from the IGEL OS to remoting protocols and how IGEL manages and what have you. It's going to be a really neat deep dive session. I don't know a lot about it, and this is why I'm personally looking forward to it. I know what the topic is, and the rest is sort of like, this is great stuff. So if you like protocols, if you use remoting, you should. And yeah, great stuff. And then we have a second session in July too with our IGEL security chief. And he manages security within IGEL, and he's going to discuss what it's like to actually manage security from the customer's company perspective, not the product perspective, and all the attacks we get, phishing, and all these other great things. So, or not great things, but these things he needs to manage. So please join us for these future events, igelcommunity.com/events. If you're new to the community, if you're one of the many registrations here, folks that have joined us that maybe you possibly are not a community member, please join us, igelcommunity.com. We have a few websites. You can get to them all from the top menu, actually, but the main one is igelcommunity.com. We have a great video site where once we're done with this meetup, we'll post it up on the video site. Also, a lot of the really great conversations and technical Q&A and how-to stuff that's going on within Slack is put into the archive site. So check that out if you have questions. Like I mentioned, we do have this video site. So this is where we archive all the meetings. Sebastian's been doing great Tech Tip Tuesday videos where every Tuesday we post a new technical tech tip video, maybe 5 to 15 minutes long on how to do a specific thing that you really need to know, and probably will come in quite handy for you as you're working with IGEL software. So great videos there. Sebastian, you had one thing, you had a few things you would like to sort of bring the audience up to date on with community.
Yeah, definitely. Just a few things. I mean, you might not have noticed it, but we have some technology partner channels coming up quite often because every technology partner where we are dealing with on the IGEL Ready team is also joining the community usually. So if you're interested in end computing or AppCure or Control Device Trust, Liquidware, Login VSI, whatever else, just keep in mind that you can search for the channels, and they're starting with TP minus, which is meant by technology partner minus, in the name of the corresponding company. And there they are sharing content about tutorials, documentation, but also new products, sometimes also about NFR kits. So if you want to join, that would definitely make sense. On the other hand, just speaking about the videos we are delivering, Doug already mentioned it. We have the Tech Tip Tuesdays videos where we are trying to cover, let's say, the standard use cases that we are seeing on the field. So it's not only meant to explain how to use a specific function, but sometimes also giving some background information, especially if you think about the views or how to lock down the IGEL operating system with some additional features like security, etc. So just in case, we are delivering quite often content there. please join on there. And if you have topics that you want to get covered, just write me a PM or write in community chit chat, and we'll be happy to cover that in upcoming sessions. That's all from my side.
Perfect. Yeah, those Tech Tip Tuesday videos are just phenomenal. So if you have not looked at them yet, please do. Just head over to videos.igelcommunity.com. I mean, they're really, Sebastian's really done a great job. They're very thorough and really dives into each particular subject. So I think you'll really like them. So we're about ready to go live with the topics of today. First, unified communication. But probably the most important thing, Sebastian, I can tell you is if you have questions, please ask them. We have some great panel here, great speakers, presenters, subject matter experts. But use the Q&A piece. Don't put them in chit chat or in the chat piece. We might miss them. We'll try to, Sebastian, on a monitor chat, but we can't guarantee it. In fact, we'll probably miss them on point of principle. So put them into Q&A, please. Use the Q&A button down there. So on that note, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to hand it over to my main man, Udo, who's going to, he has a bit he wants to share. So Udo, the floor is all yours. Thank you, guys. I'm really looking forward to this. So let's learn a bit about unified communication from Udo and Lars.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. Welcome from my side as well. Before I hand over to Lars, so we started this UCC guide from Switzerland, and we made some sessions with partners, and we said, okay, it might be a really good idea for the community as well, and this is why it's in English, and next week in German again. I want to use the chance, because we are in that cozy space here, but I want to, perhaps you heard about, I share my screen now, that IGEL goes service now. And so we skipped our old, really old, not even retro ticketing system. So we are working with cases now. And for you, the user, it's the same, support.igel.com. So when you go there, we have now a customer support portal. So that's new. So in the past, if you remember, perhaps you opened a support ticket. There were just the email correspondence. Yeah, you never were able to log in to see your open cases. Now with the customer portal, it's possible. You see two dots on the upper right side. So register and login. Of course, the login is obviously two things. If you were active in the ITRS portal or with the old ticketing system, and you click on the login screen, please use the forgot password if you had activities within the last 2 years, because then we transferred your account to the new ServiceNow portal, and just go for the forgot password with your used email address. And if you did not have any activities the last 2 years, please go and register a new account. So there you will see your open cases. There will be more features, and yeah, it was a really overnight transition. Everything worked well. It's really a good GUI, so we are happy to have it. And yeah, that's all from my side. Just want to give you that information. I think we made an announcement, but you know, because I get some questions about the accounts, I took the chance to show you that. Okay, stopped sharing my screen. I will turn off the cam now. I will hand over to Lars, and I will keep an eye on the chat and the Q&A. Thank you. Lars?
Yes, thanks. Welcome all. Thank you, Udo, for this little introduction. So if you don't know me, my name is Lars Glöckner, like you see it. I'm working in advanced services in Neher as a senior solution architect, and starting in the early 2020, I have had the topic UCC, so Unified Communications, and I have this topic really often at my customers, and so I started in early 2020 to write an official document at the first time internally, and then I said a little bit time later, okay, maybe this document and all this information are really interesting also for our customers and partners, and then I started my own private project, I will name it, and that's where we are now. Currently, we are at this point that this is the guide I have actually up and running. So the guide is often updated. So I think it's twice a month or maybe 4 times a quarter. I'm really thankful to Doug that he gave me the chance that I can place the guide on the community. So I'm also a last member since I IGEL on the community, and so I'm really happy that I can share all this knowledge with you all. And I know that sometimes it's hard if you're an IGEL employee and you also in the other time, the free time, you work with the community. But it's from my heart, it's really interesting to have all this exchange with our customers. So I really like this. Like you can see in the guide. So if you don't have seen it before, there's always my email address pointed out, because I say, if you have some things that you don't understand, please get direct in contact with me. This is not a problem for me. Maybe you get an answer in the evening because I'm with work at a day, but I will definitely answer you, because I think this guide can only be better if I can also answer different questions, or if you have some information or some ideas which I should add. I have also take this opportunity to have it in the IGEL section in IGEL Community, where I post if there's a new configuration guide version is available, and then maybe I inform about which is changed. So from today, from the session overall, I would say, okay, it's based on the version 2.4. Like you can see, it's based on May 12, so it's a little bit old. You can maybe see there was not so many changes in the last time. So I'm currently working on a new version. So it's 2.5. It will come out this week, and it's then covering the firmware base 11.5.160, which is out now today. So it's really a new version, but there's nothing special currently what is changed. So you can also go directly with 11.5.139. What is really important from my side to mention you, if you read this document and you look through these configurations, what is always not only helpful, it's needed. Please make sure that you use UMS 607. The other thing is, if you don't use this UMS in this version, if you have maybe an older version, then it can happen that you don't see any of the menus or any of the items which are written in my document. And sometimes there's a feature not available in this version what you have, and then maybe there are some mistakes or problems with the configuration. So all what I've tested, and I have a lot of test environments at my home. So I have currently 127 virtual machines. So I have all of the things which are written in the guide was privately tested by myself. So because I'm one of these guys, they are only trying things they have personally tested. If you start with the guide from the beginning, you can see there's a table of contents where I can click directly. So it's a PDF document, and there's a new section I have added here, because sometimes it's not really seen where you can get the software. So if there are public applications, so like if it's public IGEL OS, you can download it definitely in your UMS server. But if this is a private build, I have also placed here a direct link to one of my personal servers where you can download the private builds and the corresponding UMS servers, because I really like to have all the stuff what you need in one direction. Let us start a little bit about what is new. What is really new currently with UCC is the new N-Computing RX 420. There's a lot of question about this product. I think, mostly 10 times a month, I get questions. Is this possible to use UCC stuff with the RPI4? Yes, it's possible, but currently there's no HDX plugin. So if you follow the guide fully, you will see, okay, there's no possibility to have maybe a Zoom plugin or a Webex plugin or a Teams plugin, but there is a possibility also to cover some of the topics. If you use, for example, Citrix browser content redirection, you can configure this. And I have set here all the configuration, what is currently possible. So based on Citrix, you can configure the normal Citrix configuration. This is all what is possible. And then you can also use UDP for audio, and you can also have the multiple audio device support, which shows you the clear names of the devices, so Jabra for the headset, for example, and the Logitech for the webcam. And this is another point is if you want to have the HDX webcam redirection on the RPI4 device, then there is this section which makes some things possible. So if you use one of these applications, it's possible also with this device to be online with webcam and headset. The only what you need to check is you need to go to the local terminal. So there you can print in the topic, the command ls USB, and then you can see, okay, is my camera supported from this device? And for example, the Logitech is it? And then you can control, okay, which height can be used. And if you click on test and you get the camera picture, then you're aware, okay, this camera will be work with this machine. And then you can definitely also redirect this to Citrix and can use this with these applications. This is from this point. Let us hand over to Citrix. I think mostly of the cases we had currently, the mostly questions I also get is with Citrix. Currently, the guide is based on the Citrix Workspace app 2104. I know there are some problems currently with 2104. So if you raise some problems with audio, with video, with whatever can happen, my recommendation is if it's not your only use case to use unified communications, please stay with 2012, because in 2012 mostly of the functions are working. There's also audio and video working. Sometimes some of the newer things like integration for Microsoft Teams for optimization don't work properly with 2012, but mostly of the features are stable, and all the things that are currently not stable with 2104 will be fixed soon. So from this perspective, if you start with a Citrix environment, my personal recommendation is at first you need to know, okay, what is configured on your Citrix side, and the second thing, what is configured on your IGEL side. From IGEL perspective, these are all my best practices. I have nearly 20 years of experience with additional Citrix environments, so I know what you have to configure from this point. And if you need some information about the policies, for example, you can also ask. So what I have currently done here is I have done a little bit of special optimization there. There is a parameter which is often forgotten. This is the cache size in kilobyte. Sometimes the people think this is not more needed, but this is not true. I extend this parameter to 2048 because this is if you start a YouTube video, for example, there is this little time where the content is cached, and if you have additional content there and the number is a little bit higher than the standard is 2024, then it will be working really more performant, and you will get the most out of your video and the most out of your combination within UCC. The other point, which is also sometimes overseen, is there is this audio bandwidth limit in Storefront session, which is normally in the general configuration, it's configured to high, and I think the medium is that is at least what is needed. So you don't need to do this in high. Sometimes I say, okay, yes, from the Citrix perspective, high is better, but from our perspective, we have not only audio and video, we have also another content from sessions, from sharing, from applications. And at the end, we need a way where all the bandwidth can be used for all the different objects. And the medium is the most common way to use this. Another thing is sometimes a little bit problematic. I've heard this because if I write, for example, this picture in the guide, then all the people worldwide read my guide and they definitely go there and only configure what I have checked here. But this is some things also sometimes also not a good way. The only thing what is the thing what is needed, you need to understand for what these options are. if you don't know the options and you only check the checkbox and they say, okay, because Lars has said it should work, then maybe it's not work because you have checked the wrong technology. So for example, this multi-stream sessions thing is only there if you have at the backend a XenApp environment, so formerly a desktop server, the XenApp environment with a published desktop. If you have VDIs like Windows 10, client operating systems, this is not a good option because you don't have a multi-stream server. If you don't have a multi-stream server, you don't need multi-stream sessions. So if there's a Windows 10 operating system, a VDI with Xen Desktop in the backend, please don't enable this option. This makes no sense. Otherwise, if it's with servers, you can enable this, and please be sure that UDP with fallback to TCP is enabled because you get the most out of UDP, because UDP is a really fast protocol, especially for audio and video communications. So if it's ever possible in your environment to use UDP, I would prefer this all the time. But then is another thing, what is also needed, if you have the UDP enabled in the options of all, you definitely need to go to the registry and need to be sure that in IGEL model enable UDP audio, also this checkbox is enabled. So most of time, this is overseen. So mostly of our configurations are that the people configuring UDP will fall back to TCP, but don't enable this box, and then there's a problem with the audio communication between the client, which is on IGEL OS, and the server, which is Citrix or the endpoint on NVDI. So this is the options you also need in combination with the UDP HDX adaptive transport protocol. There are some cases, and I notice sometimes also for bigger companies, they have wide area networks and it's all over the world connected. There are sometimes it is not possible to use UDP. Then I would prefer then don't use the fallback, because the fallback means at the first in the first 5 seconds it tries to use UDP, and UDP is not working. It goes back to TCP. If you know from the beginning that you can use UDP, please configure it to TCP only. So if you start with TCP only, UDP is disabled. It's fine. Then you can all the configurations like Teams, like Citrix, like HDX for browser, whatever, you can also use with TCP only. There are sometimes information which going over the world, you cannot use unified communication with TCP. This is not right. The only thing what you need to be sure is if you configure TCP only, you only need to make sure that you disable this option again, because UDP audio does not work if you combine this with TCP only. So there's so my recommendation is, and the one way is you have all on TCP, and the other way is you have all in UDP, but don't do a mix. And there's another thing, if you're working with TCP only, so you see also a difference between here and here, because on UDP it's disabled. When you go there, if you use a TCP on the browser, it's a good way to use this CGP address. This is a part of the session reliability from Citrix. And then the machine have not to search where is my server, use the server address directly for the connection, because if it goes through a TCP, it's the same protocol, and then it's much faster if you use this option. Okay, there's additional information about graphics, which is also important. So from IGEL perspective and also from my personal perspective, it's definitely a good approach if you have some hardware up in place which is H.264 compatible. And if you have this compatibility of graphics, then it's definitely a good way, the configuration for graphics, you can set this to automatic, which is the standard, but then only use the accelerated H264 for the one hand and the GPEG batch decoding for another hand. The other things you don't need, and you can disable this. If there's a possibility that there's maybe a problem with H264, definitely it's also possible to disable this. But if it's an automatic and you have enabled it, then it's all done what it's needed, and the system will work good. Yeah, and some another things that are important. So in one or another version, there are some changes. So if you remember, if you have begun with 11.4.217, for example, with this UCC guide, and then hand over to IGEL 11.5.100 or 120, there was a change with this multiple audio device support, because there was a problem in 21.03 that there was a new version where this function was by default disabled. I would think if your Citrix environment is proper configured and you don't use headsets with jacks, so I think this is the most problem of all the environments what we have currently worldwide. If you want to have this option up and running and you want to see the name of the devices, so for your headsets and for webcams, then the most recommended information is don't use any plugins with a jack. It's only USB supporting. So if you have a USB 2, a USB 3, a USB 3.1, or even a USB-C, all is fine. If you don't use a jack, you can enable this and it will work. If you have jacks at the headphones, for example, or with the microphone, then this function is not even good, because there's a problem with the PCM driver addressing, which hand over to also and pulls audio, and this is a problem-causing thing, which is not currently solved by Citrix. So my recommendation is USB with this option and not USB without this option, and then you will not get a problem. There's also a new webcam feature which is now integrated, so you don't need to configure the webcam components by yourself. So if you have the right UMS, like I mentioned before, you need at least 607. Then this additional option, HDX real-time webcam redirection, have this new option, automatic HDX real-time configuration, which is also enabled by default. And then my recommendation is, because currently in our systems, if video is needed, like I have it now configured with my webcam, you definitely should use it with high, because then you have a good rate with 25 frames per second, and you have a good resolution, and this is what is needed. And for example, if you have a good new webcam which also supports H264 or also HEVC as a codec, then there is a good approach if you go with high, because you get a good picture, and then you have this additional things where you can make it more performance. So this is a special section in the ICA client, so where we have this HDX webcam H264 native plugin. This is the one point, and the second point is this one. And if this both is enabled, this is this function at the end. Only to be clear where you can find this. So now comes it to the section. This is a really new section in my document, because I get often the questions, like we have spoken before, or like I have shown you before in the RX 420, how I can use all these things with HDX, with HDX Pro, if I don't have software available with plugins. So because plugins currently only available for Webex, for Zoom, for Teams. And this is the thing. If you need something else, then you can definitely go with Citrix browser content redirection. This is a way. And another way is you need only a webcam redirection with and without RTME. So this is the good stuff. RTME is the real-time media engine. This is the engine which was created by Citrix for Skype. So the Skype real-time media engine can be used with the browser itself, and it can also be used without the RTME. The only thing, and this is the most common question what I get, why this only works for the 32-bit applications. This is not something which is based on IGEL. This is something which is based on Citrix, because Citrix only allow for the Citrix workspace app for Linux to use 32-bit VDA. So all the other stuff which is there will not work. So if you have a 64-bit application and you want to use the webcam redirection, I had a meeting, for example, last week with a customer who want to use GoToMeeting, and we have opened this in a Chrome browser, and this was a Chrome browser. It's a 64 application, and it does not work. And then we definitely really fast found out that this was the wrong version of the browser. So we need the 32-bit application also of the browser, and then GoToMeeting is also working if it's not officially supported by a special offloading plugin. You can easily check this. There is this website webcamtest.com, where you can check, okay, if it's a browser with the right application, then you can check your camera, and then you can see it's working. The webcam usage is exclusive to applications. So yes, the thing is, you need to launch this application. And then if you launch this application and you have the webcam GoToMeeting, for example, you cannot use the same webcam in our application. So it's not possible, if you have GoToMeeting up and running, that you can open another browser window and, for example, use Skype online or whatever you want to use. Then you cannot get access to the camera, because you get a message, the camera is still used in this session. So then you need to exit this, or Skype or whatever, and then you can go to another application. Then the camera is free again, and then you can still use it. Okay, there's another thing here, supported and working video conferencing applications. I think there's a lot of things what you can see. There's are some stars here in this guide. This happens because the star things, the blue jeans and big blue buttons, are not officially supported products from Citrix perspective, but this product was tested by me, and I found out these are also working. I want to add one point. Maybe for some of you, the application Gvdi is a name. This is also currently under investigation, and I can mention currently I made good advantage of this. If you have a special Gvdi configuration, you can also use this with this configuration. I will add this to my next guide. There are some additional things that are always important if you work with an environment. So it's not directly pointed to Citrix, but it's mostly common on Citrix, because in the other applications like VMware and Microsoft Virtual Desktops, we don't have Windows servers because we have their clients. So I added this section here under Citrix a second time. It's also added on the RDP section. It's also a part of this document, because sometimes it's overseen by most of our customers when they want to address a Windows desktop, which is based on an Xen desktop or based on an Xen application, that you need also to apply some GPOs to the system that you can use. For example, your camera, you can use your audio, and all the things are enabled, because these are local security policies if you don't use GPOs. And if you use GPOs, you need to add this special GPOs to make it possible that the endpoint and also the session itself can access the redirection of audio and video playback, and also the recording features. And there's additional things for the microphone itself, and also for the camera itself, which is also mentioned here. And this are all of this. If you have applied all of this configurations, then your server is aware, and you can look into your device manager. And in the device manager under camera, this is with C in the English installation, then you can see your webcam. If your webcam is not there under camera, then the problem is that the webcam is not seen as a webcam. It's sometimes seen as an audio device. If you don't find the camera under camera, then you look under audio in, and then under audio in, you will see the camera. And then is a big question how I can solve this. And there's a possibility how you can solve this. I will mention this now. Let me go a little bit deeper in the guide because I have added a section there. Because this is this one. There is an additional section, it's the point 3.9, additional information and links for troubleshooting on Citrix. And there are additional links where you can find additional topics which are not covered in my guide, but this is this one what I want to mention you. If your camera is not seen under cameras and it's seen under audio devices, then this is the problem. Then you need to disable the webcam audio. This is a special thing what we have, what our developers from IGEL have included in the client. So it's a firmware thing on IGEL OS. It has nothing to do with Citrix itself, but this makes it possible that you can disconnect the webcam audio from the webcam video. And if you check this box and then you start the Windows server again for the session as again, then you can definitely see the camera under cameras, and there's no additional webcam audio section available. So this is sometimes a good hint. Let us go back to the section where we were. So this was the section where we was before. So then let us start with Cisco Webex meetings. It's also a good point to mention is currently the naming things. So currently we have a lot of problems that Cisco is renamed the applications. So Cisco Webex meetings is the same like before, but there is Cisco Webex Teams, which is now named only Cisco Webex. So please be aware that Cisco Webex meetings and Cisco Webex are two different products. So you need two different configurations on the client. The first thing what you need definitely, the recommendation is to activate multimedia redirection, and then you need to activate Cisco Webex meetings VDI. This is the first part. This is all what you need to do from IGEL OS side. But then the good thing is for IGEL now all is done. But now the work begins. What is, I would say, a mess of different clients and things currently is that I would say every month or sometimes nearly every week a new Webex meetings clients appears, and this is something sometimes really bad because you need all the time you have had the need to actualize the IGEL firmware because in the last version it was in every firmware was only one plugin installed, and my guide is here based on like I mentioned 11.5.139. With 11.139 the Webex meetings plugin 41.4 is included, which works together with this client, which you can download here directly. This is a direct link. You don't need to log in to Cisco. You only need to download it here. And this is 41.4.5. And this works together. But I know since this version, there's a lot of changes. So the only thing what I can mention you, if you use one of the newer firmware versions from IGEL, starting with 11.5.145, and like I said before, the current one is 11.5.160. There we have done a lot of things. So we changed this, and now 3 different versions of Cisco Webex meetings are included in one firmware. So this is a really good approach because now you can choose this version, so 41.4. You can choose 41.6, which is the newest one, and you can choose 42, if I remember correctly. And then this is a good thing because you can follow the slow channel at Cisco. This is the system where the clients will be not so often actualized, and you can follow the fast channel, and the fast channel is currently working with 41.6. What you have all together is you need to install this on the server or on the desktop, like I mentioned here, and then you need to add under default users this key, because only with this key the VDI feature is enabled, and then you can see if you open Cisco Webex meetings, you can see this this little word VDI there, and if VDI is not there, then the session is not optimized. There was a question before, because in my first guide I wrote, okay, you need to use this for the current user, but yes, if this is a server, it's not a current user, you need to do this for the default user. And there's one additional information. If you start with your Cisco environment later on, and your Citrix servers are always populated, and so, for example, you have 25 or 26 or whatever 50 sessions on your Citrix server, then this will not work alone. You need then also to add this option to all the users that are existing on the server. So what I recommend, if you use Cisco Webex on Citrix environments, please make sure that all your users get a new relog into the server, so that they can create new profiles there, and that this option will automatically include it in the new profile, because otherwise you have this option there and it will not work. Another thing is you can even check if this is working. There is an administrator side where you need to allow that Cisco Webex for VDI is allowed on your site. So if you have an administrator of your Cisco site, this is the page. You can open this and then you can look. And he needs to make sure that the VDI option on Cisco Webex is allowed. Otherwise, you can install whatever you want. Then you never want to get the VDI option inside your Webex application, because then it's forbidden. Another thing, what is really important here is, which is also often asked to me, how I can check if my connection is working. You need to go here. You need to go to your Citrix desktop, go to your browser, and then type mediatest.webex.com, and then you will, in a few seconds, you will see all UDP ports are open, all TCP ports are open, because there are also a lot of ports which are included by UDP or by TCP, because you need to access the API from Cisco on the internet, which is all of them is written in this article. But I know sometimes I get some calls from customers and they ask me, okay, where this is written? And I said, okay, maybe you don't have clicked my second URL, because this is the official guide. And if you read this guide, I think this has 150 pages. There is also a section included where you can find which ports needs to be open. But if you don't want to read this, you can still go to the mediatest.webex.com page, and then you will see it in a few seconds if you have all the ports open and all is working. Another point is, because Webex has also now a really good page. There's an open and resolve bugs for the latest Webex meetings updates page, where mostly of the things are which are mentioned from us or from other people they are working with this are written, and it's always helpful. Let us go to the next part. Like I mentioned before, the new Cisco Webex, which was formerly the Webex Teams, is another product which is included. You need also to enable multimedia redirection, and then you need to enable another product. In our IGEL, it's still named Cisco Webex Teams, but on Cisco itself, it's now named Cisco Webex. There is a little bit different installation available. So the good thing is the version which is installed on the VDI and the version which is installed in the plugin is the same. So the version is directly the same. There are no differences between the client software and the server software. The only thing what you need to be sure is the 64-bit installer or the 32-bit installer. If you want to ask me what you should do, I would every time go with the 64-bit installer, because Windows is currently all the time 64-bit. So I think the 32-bit installer is not needed anymore. Then there are some possibilities where you can the VDI image configure with persistent VDIs or non-persistent VDIs. I don't want to explain this now, because it's all written here. There's also a document available like before. And there's also a lot of known issues also for this application available. And there's one special point, which is, I think, really important. This was a hint from one of my colleagues from Pre-Sales US. He found out that there's a problem if Citrix and Windows virtual desktop vGPU environments are used. The Webex is not detected as working in the VDI environment, and then you need to add a special parameter inside the VDI environment, because otherwise this option VDI is not shown. So if you have a GPU environment in your servers, so if you have servers with NVIDIA GPU inbuilt, then you need to follow this guide and add this additional function, and then it will also work with the VDI portion of the Webex client. Definitely, I think the most complicated or the most seen implementation currently is Microsoft Teams, and also together with Skype for Business, if I remember correctly, because I think nearly every second or more than every second customer is asking me, oh, we need to install Teams. How we should do this? The first thing is, okay, activate all these 3 options, which is under HDX Multimedia and Citrix. That's all what you need. So from Citrix perspective, from the Citrix IGEL perspective, all is fine. So this is all what you need. The only thing what is done, then the work, I will say, begins, because at first you need to be sure that you need at least Windows 10 version 1909. I would think currently in June 2021 this is done, but I may be wrong. I had a customer 2 weeks ago, and they still go with 1809, and then they were still wondering why it was not working. And then I said, okay. I had the idea some days ago. I could delete this line from my guide, but now I'm, to be honest, now I was happy that it was still there, that I can mention them. Okay, it will only work if there is the build 1909 installed. So this is the first thing which is needed. The second thing what is needed, I prefer 20H2, which is one of the last versions. That there is also, this is sometimes a link where you come to Microsoft, because sometimes it's not seen by some people if there's no automatic update available, how you can install the version 20H2 to the machine. So there's a link. Then there's another link where you get the HDX real-time optimization pack if you want to use Teams together with Skype. Yes, this is possible. You can have Teams and Skype on the same machine. There are some additional configurations needed, but there's no problems. You can, like I said before, you cannot have the same cam in Skype and Teams at the same time, but you can use both applications. And the only thing what you now need, you need to follow this article. It looks a little bit better than it is, because currently this article have nearly 80 pages, which all the information is what you need to follow. The minimum version is like before 1.2, but we are currently at 1.4, 1.5. So we are far away from then what is the minimum version, but it's ever also working with the minimum version. And there's a lot of stuff to do in the case of the firewall ports. And this is also a topic where I'm asking, where I've asked a lot of times before, is this still needs to do on the Citrix server, or is this still needs to do on the IGEL part? So it still need to do on the cloud service. So because it's if in your Citrix environment it's needed, and it's needed on the backend overall, that you can access this URL. The only thing where it's needed that your IGEL endpoint should connect to this page is if you want to use Citrix browser redirection. Because if you use Citrix browser redirection, all the work can go to the endpoint, and then the endpoint itself want to connect to the API of Microsoft. And then if there's a port blocking or whatever, a proxy or whatever included, then it's not possible to attend a meeting. You can easily check this if you open your Teams client and you start a call. And it needs at least 5 to 10 seconds. If you get audio, then there is something blocked of these URLs. Because then the problem is maybe your UDP ports are blocked, and then it falls back to TCP. And then sometimes the TCP is allowed and the UDP not, and there is a delay of at least 10 seconds. till the fallback came, and if the fallback is done, then it's working again. So if you have this information from your environment or from your partners or from your customers, then this is the right way to search. All of these URLs still open and or reachable by your proxy. And it's the same like on Webex. There is a web page available where you can check if your network fulfills all the requirements to support Skype and Teams. So this is also a web page where you can click, and there will be a test against all these URLs, and then you will see it. And I think it needs between 1 and 3 minutes. It's not so fast like on Webex, but you get a lot of information about your applications which are installed on Citrix. My recommendation is like before, this IGEL in the current version, it's 103.9, the Workspace app 2104, and for Skype for Business, the new HCX real-time optimization pack in the version 2.9.300 is included. This is really important. Some of the older versions of IGEL only contains the optimization pack in the version 2.9.100, and it was a little bit wondering for me, but there are some improvements also in the real-time optimization pack for Skype for Business since I think 2019. So it's really needed to have the last version, and then also Skype performs really good. And there's, like always, also for HDX optimization or Teams, there's an extra article available where you can find open and solve problems. Now we come to a really important topic. There is currently with Citrix Workspace app 2103 and 2104, there is a problem with the screen sharing and crash and session disconnects on Citrix. There is this is seen. It was seen also at 2104. There was an update done by Citrix, but it does not help really good. I have heard from some colleagues in the company, we are currently testing with 2106. This is the current Citrix receiver or Citrix Workspace app, and with 2106, this error should be gone. So please stay tuned. I think in one of the next versions, the 2106 will be included, and then you don't need this additional workaround. But currently, there is a workaround. I think this is all the time the important thing. You don't need to stay with the screen sharing crash and the session disconnects on Citrix. There are 2 options available where you can follow. The first option is, like I mentioned, go back to 2012. Then the screen sharing problem is gone because it was the base on this or some newer functions. But there's another thing what is also possible. If you for every hardware you use for IGEL, you need to go to the registry and add or enable this option, use compositing. This compositing thing also solves the crashing. The only thing is here, there is another thing, what is a requirement if you enable this function, and they are written here. So there's now a little bit mess of information. So the thing is here, if this is an IGEL or another AMD hardware, then it's needed that you also enable the force usage of DRI-free. This is for AMD GPU. You can see this in the registry URL. If this is an ATE graphics card, you need to follow this. So this is the difference, because the base of this fix is a base on the camera, not on the camera, on the graphics basis, sorry. And it depends on which graphic card you have inbuilt. So you need at first to know if this is an IGEL device, you can follow with this. If this is another device with ATE graphic cards, you need to follow this. And if there is another thing, for another hardware like VDI-based graphic cards or use of VDI elements with GPU, it is needed to disable accelerated H264 deep compression codec. So this is only the bad information. The fix is only really working with H264 with ATE and AMD. And if it's neither AMD or ATE, then you need to disable the accelerated H264, and then it's also working. This is the only thing. And in my guide, it's still written. Citrix is currently working to fix this, but we have seen it will come out really soon, because Citrix Workspace app for Linux 21.06 is still available. It needs to be included in one of our next versions. We want to hand over to Zoom. So Zoom is really easy from IGEL perspective. It only need to activate the Zoom Media plugin from the client perspective. And then you need also to follow the guide. So the current version, which is available for this combination, is 5.5.0. You can download this one here. And there's a special information, especially for bigger environments, because if you don't want to install this manually on all the different clients, endpoint clients, or the servers or the VDIs, there is this MSI exec command available where you can have a silent installation with all these actions, and you can include this in your image. And there's also a source available for mass installation and configurations for Windows. And then if you have the 139, all is included. This was all for the plugins from Citrix perspective. Then there's definitely the next session, like I said, for Citrix browser content redirection with all the same products. There's even the same base, so with all these items. And there's another thing which needs to be enabled for the browser content redirection. This is this enablement for microphone and webcams redirection using browser content redirection. This is this CF enabled media devices. CEF enabled stands for the Chrome embedded. This is the Chrome embedded framework, which is used by Citrix browser redirection. This needs to be enabled also in the IGEL OS, and then the browser redirection is still working. But the most popular things what we have is, okay, this is not a problem to enable browser content redirection. The mostly problems you get on the back end. So there's the official article where I can find it, but I recommend to use this one. If you have never before worked with browser content redirection, there's a really good article by Roddy Cosson. It's from 2018, but it's it's the same like there. So it's all the time. It's currently guilty. Here you can follow all the things he have done to enable Citrix browser content redirection with policies and all the stuff. And if you follow this guide, and also if you follow these two guides, then you definitely get the most out of your browser content redirection, and it will still work. And the last one is the Cisco Gvdi on Citrix. I have added this here because there was a lot of questions about this. How can Jabber be used with this offloading thing? So there's also the Cisco Gvdi client included in IGEL OS. There are my recommendations to configure this. It's mostly the standard, but it's a little bit on the default volume and also the default microphone volume, because sometimes the microphone is a little bit quiet and you don't hear anything. So the recommendation is to use a little higher value here, parameter here, because it's then better. You can better understand the people, and the people can better understand you. If this is the configuration, and then you need to follow the standard Cisco Jabber installation for Windows VDI client, and there's also for the agent, and there's also in how-to the installation for the softphone release 14, because the client 14 is installed in this IGEL firmware build. Only that you are informed. If you don't have 14 on the, and if you have 12.9.3, then you can also use 14. And if you have 12.9.2, you can also use 14, because on Cisco it's you can use the current version or the two last versions. So you don't need to change your backend if you want to use the client 14 and the backend is still on 12.9.2. It will work, but we have another firmware version in place. If you if you really want to have the same version on both on the IGEL and also on the Citrix or the other application, you can still use a firmware which includes the Gvdi in version 12.9.3. This is also available. And there's also some additional information about collaboration accessories, like I have said before for the topic about the Webex. It's not recommended to use check microphones and check headsets, and there are a lot of another endpoints and client accessories listed here that they do not crash with this implementation. So there's a lot of different things here from Citrix perspective, like I mentioned, and then we go to the other sections. But at first, I need to ask: have I some time, or if I'm in the?
We just talked about.
Yeah.
So I think we should. I don't know.
How long do you need,
5 minutes?
Just approximately.
Okay.
How long do you need approximately? How many minutes?
I think I need another 25 minutes if I go to follow document.
Okay, we have to stay fair to Ron also,
Yes.
which has to cover the GitHub
we don't
stuff.
have that time, so.
Can you compress a little bit? Is that possible?
Yes, then give me another 10 minutes and then.
Well, we can also do a part 2, like we've done with Sebastian.
Yes, this is also, maybe it's also a good thing because like I mentioned, there's a lot of things which you need to cover. So now we have covered Citrix. And normally, if it's a good approach, if we can have another 1 hour for the VMware part, then I think we can also do this in this way. Because, like you said, Sebastian, if you now use something like an hour for Citrix, and then now go in 10 minutes over VMware, I think it's not good for the people. They need it for VMware.
Correct.
Okay.
No, totally. Yeah, we can do a very, we can do a part 2 as soon as possible. Absolutely,
yes.
Not a problem.
Okay, then I will end on this action. The only what I want to mention you can still download this document on the community. It's always actually because the link is always the same. The only thing that the version behind will be changing. So you only need this one link, and then you have all what you need. So thanks for this.
Thank you, Lars.
Thank you, Lars.
Yeah.
Let me turn on my camera. And now we'll transition over to Ron, and he's going to share with us some amazing stuff this guy's done. We started Sebastian about a year ago. It was about a year ago. It was right on July 4th when I built skipped out on going to my parents-in-law house and built a custom partition store with Sebastian's help. And Ron sort of took that and did stuff that we couldn't imagine. We didn't even think. Our hope was someone would come around and try to make it a little bit better. But Ron sort of took it to another stratosphere. So with no further ado, Ron, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you bet. Perfect. You sound perfect. Yes. We'll go back on mute and the floor is all yours.
Excellent. Let me know when you can see my screen. I got my little hedgehog here riding his bicycle. So
he's moving pretty fast.
There you go. So what we're going to, let me go into presentation mode here. So what we've got is with the GitHub, with IGEL and the IGEL community, we have content up there for documentations. We have the PS, the PowerShell IGEL stuff is there, and then we also have custom partitions. So as Doug was mentioning, we had that CP store, and when I was kind of looking at it and kind of going through that, it was like, hey, it might be nice to move this over to GitHub and put some automation and stuff around it in the whole build. So that's kind of what we did here. So basically with the custom partitions, we have it set up so we have the basic stub files that you need and a build script. You can do a wget on the build script, take it over to your Ubuntu 1804 system, run it, and within 30 seconds or a minute, you would have a custom partition for the latest version of Teams or Zoom or WebEx or BlueJeans or whatever, whatever you need there, So that's kind of what we've done. What I'm going to kind of show is how it's set up in that environment for you. So basically with GitHub, it's just kind of, for source code, before I came over to IGEL, we actually, the company I worked for, DXC, a system integrator, I kind of had the workplace offering architecture and build, and all of our documentation, we moved from Word documents and have documentation as code. So all of it sits in our GitHub and stuff. So anyway, so I had some experience there with the GitHub and what we put through. So from my environment, what I'm showing you is that, the common tools, we have GitHub, then on my PC, I've got a GitHub desktop, and then you need an editor. I just use Atom as my editor and have that, set up for me for that. And then also the IGEL community on Slack, you have the ability to add applications to there, and you could add GitHub. So like, for example, if one of us is updating, and I'll show this here in a minute, is updating a package or whatever, if you have that turned on in your IGEL community on Slack, you'll get a notice as soon as we publish something new up there. So you're never having to hunt and say, hey, have they finished doing the latest version or tested the latest version of Zoom, right, which came out earlier this week. You can, you'll see it in a little pop-up there in GitHub. So basically on the GitHub, as I mentioned, we have the PS IGEL, IGEL docs and custom partitions, and we also have scripts. So if you want to build what Seb had put together around building a Ubuntu system for your ICG, the backend scripts are here. So you could just grab that, fire it up, grab those scripts, and lock down your ICG system. For the GitHub desktop, what that allows you to do is essentially take everything that's up on GitHub and those repositories and cache them down on your PC, and then you're able to go in and work on them there and then publish them back up. And I'll show a quick little demo for that as well. With the Atom editor, I can get in there, edit the markdown, and as I'm editing, I see a side screen of what you see is what you get kind of stuff. So you can see it formatting as you're editing that document. And then, as I mentioned, with the Slack, you can go down to apps, add GitHub to it, and then you can subscribe to the IGEL community on GitHub there. And so anything we change, anything that gets changed up there, you'll get a little flag within your Slack that something has changed. Like, for example, this one here, an ICG auto enrollment profile was set up, and so you get kind of a message there. And what you see here is it gets pushed up there to GitHub, and then there's some automation that runs behind on the GitHub to actually create the zip file for you for the pieces. So that's automatically done when you do that. That automation that kicks off in the actions, and you can see the automation. So basically when something changes, it looks what has changed and it determines what it needs to do, and it builds the zip file for it. So that's automatically done. So for the custom partitions, again, what we're doing here with this is we're storing the raw CP file. So you have your INF file, your profile XML file, any stuff with AppArmor, any of those other configs, sticks them up there. And then that build script pulls all of that stuff together and builds that custom partition for you right on the fly. The layout for the IGEL custom partitions, what you'll see there when you go there, you see a CP source, you see packages, this workflow. So if you go in there and look at that, you can see what we did to actually build the script and the automation to take the stuff from CP source and create the zip file and drop it into CP package. We also have a little video down here showing all the steps and how you could build Microsoft Teams custom partition in 42 seconds. And we all know the answer is 42. So it was good that it ran in 42 seconds. In the CP source, then it's kind of laid out. We have apps, browsers, multimedia, network, unified comms. So if I go into unified comms, at this point in time, you can see there's Teams and Slack and Yak and Zoom, for example. There's others in there now. When you go into Teams, then you can see all the various pieces that we need. There's the build script, there's the AppArmor reload, here's the init script. So as you know, the IGEL OS is a read-only operating system. And what the custom partitions, you need some kind of init script to link it into the IGEL file system. so that everything links in and looks like it's part of the system. And that init runs every time the system starts up, right? So real key to have those pieces there. And then we have the little README file for it. You can see in the CP packages then similar layout and structure. And if I go into the unified communications, you can see there's various zip files like, you know, the latest Zoom or the latest Teams are there. And then, as I was mentioning, we have this build script. So essentially all you have to do now is if you need to build the latest version of a custom partition, you just have a VM with Ubuntu 18.04 on it. You fire that system up, that VM, and then you basically just, you know, create a folder, do a wget to get the you know, the script. You make sure it's executable, and then you can put time on the front of it and run it and see how long it takes to build that for you. For my system, my PC, I just use VirtualBox for my hypervisor, but you could use VMware Workstation or Fusion, whatever, there for that. And then, so if we look here, I'm kind of showing you what the Microsoft Teams CP and that build script. So basically, it's just a bash script. And for Teams, what it's doing is it's actually adding the Microsoft package, adding Microsoft's package to the package manager here. And then all it's doing is getting Teams, it's getting any missing libraries, in case this one here. It creates the folders, it extracts the packages into there, and then it just kind of runs through. It does a wget to get that zip file, and then it moves all the pieces into the right place, and then it tars it up and creates your file. So very simple, as I said, 42 seconds, build Teams, and deploy that and run Teams natively on your IGEL endpoint. Another example is Microsoft Edge. So there's a version of Microsoft Edge for Linux. So what we've done here is a similar thing. We've taken the Microsoft Package Manager and we connect that in. And currently today for Microsoft Edge, there's a dev and a beta version. And then as soon as it moves out of beta, then we'll update the script to have, you know, the final version. But again, it grabs that, any missing libraries, similar steps, and it builds it out. So very simple, straightforward. What I want to do now is just kind of go over to, how are we doing on time? Okay, let me go over to my web page. So again here, what you can see, the IGEL community on GitHub. So we have the PS IGEL, IGEL docs, custom partitions, you know, pieces sitting here. So if I, sorry, let me move my thing over here. So if I go in here for custom partitions, you can see there's a source, there's the packages. We have some notes around this. You click on this, you can see a video of the whole process of building Teams. If we go into CP source and unified communications now, you can see, you know, the various things. So if you need BlueJeans or LinPhone, there's Teams, there's Signal, Slack, Webex is there, Zoom, for example, right? So if we go into Microsoft Teams and look at the build script, again, what I was showing you, here's the pieces in that script. All you would do here is go to raw and then copy this item here, go over to your Ubuntu and do a wget on that string, and it will just go ahead and bring that script down and you'd be ready to run it. And then in the CP packages for unified comms, then you can see there's a zip file, but really you don't need to mess with any of this at all. All you really need to do is grab the script for whichever one you want and run it. So in CP source, let's just go in here and look at apps. Let's say, hey, you've got something like Conky, which is kind of showing you stats on the display or whatnot. Or if you want to have Java Web Start, here's Ice-T, and you can build that there. So a ton of different things in here, even Steam. So if your games and stuff like that, you want to run Steam on Linux, you can grab this and build that. You want to run the VMware remote console and run that on the IGEL endpoint, or Wireshark. All that stuff is kind of there. So really what I want to do now is just show kind of my workflow and process in here. So if I was to go into, so I've gone into the GitHub desktop and I have it all cached down to my PC. So you can see README file. So if I right click on that, I can just say open with Atom. It would open it and then I can see the file, see everything that I'm doing. So let's just go in here and I'm just going to edit this file and just get rid of a couple things here. I'll do a right quit on it. So basically I've edited the file. So if I go now over to my GitHub desktop, you can see here's the file, that I edited. You can see the change that I made. I just took out a couple of dashes from this. And all I'm going to do is just say like update the README. I can say commit to master, and I can push it. And so what that's going to do is now send it up to the GitHub and push that. You can see Slack. So as I was telling you, you can tie Slack into it. So if I go into GitHub, you can see, okay, I did a new commit, and I've updated the README file here, right? So that README file has been done, and that stuff's running there. If I go back over to my GitHub, oh, that was pretty quick. Anyway, the actions run. And so what I was saying was that updated the README ran and the script ran. So this, if you look at the actions in this build, you could actually see what all it did to say, hey, I found this file changed, and I put it in. But anyway, the action's there. If I go back now to GitHub, you can see, updated the CP package. So as soon as I pushed that README, the action in GitHub ran, and it updated that CP and that zip file. So now that is all been updated automagically. So that was my quick thing on the GitHub and all of that. So basically open it for any questions. Okay.
You caught me a little bit
too much on the chat.
You caught me all kicked back enjoying that session. I had to move up to unmute myself.
Okay. Well,
yeah,
you mean you fell asleep? I still see the drool on the side of your mouth there. It's like, oh, is Ron stop talking? Oh man.
No, I was kicked back like this, started watching it. I was like, oh, I gotta get up. That was really great,
okay.
Man. Really great stuff. I absolutely love what you've done with the GitHub stuff. I learned a lot this session, but I don't claim to understand it all. I just know how, it's amazing. It's really amazing stuff. So yeah, if let's open up for questions, and not just for Ron, but for Udo and Lars also. So if you guys have any questions, please let us know. And we're definitely going to, as soon as this call's over, I'll schedule something with Lars and do a part 2 on the unified communications piece with VMware.
The other thing really in there with the GitHub area, if you go in there and like go into custom partition, right from in there, you can do a search. So you could say, hey, does someone have I'm looking for an ICG, or I'm looking for whatever. You can just do a quick search instead of hunting through all the different folders. You could say, hey, is Wireshark there, or Blue Jeans, or Cisco Webex? Do they have a custom partition script for it? You can just go into GitHub, do a quick search, and find it. Perfect.
And we'll definitely open up some sort of channel to put some of this stuff. Ron, I have a question for you. Can we within GitHub post only certain things? So like, when there's something new, not just every commit, or is that possible?
Do you post what now? Sorry.
So within the IGEL community, is there a process within GitHub to inform them when something's new, not just like, let's say every commit, but like a major build or does that someone, I guess I don't really know what I'm asking in some ways, in other ways I know what I'm asking. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like an RSS feedback or whatever, that we are informed in community if there's something new in the GitHub. That's what you mean?
Yeah, maybe you can explain that process a little bit more.
Yeah, so I mean, there's different ways you can do that and set that up. I haven't really done much with that. It's most of my stuff is just getting the basic pieces in and subscribing within the IGEL.
Cool. I wouldn't call it basic,
within Slack and GitHub, right, and the apps. Yeah. I mean, there's more stuff that you can do. I'm not an expert. I just know the little bit that I showed you here. So yeah.
Sorry, so sure. Cool. Yeah, way cool. Way cool.
So there's a question in there now about what requirements are needed if you wanted to add something to a CP. So basically what you would do in GitHub is you would take the custom partition area, you would fork it into your own area. You would create your new stuff that you want, test it, make sure everything looks good, and then you can do a pull request back to us. We would review it, look at it, put any questions in there, whatnot, and go here. Here, I can do a sample for that and just kind of show you that flow. Let me share my screen again here real quick. So basically, let me know when you can see my screen.
We can.
Okay, so if I go in here to into the GitHub area here, what we did, let's see if I can find a good one here. When we were working with Nutanix Frame to build a custom partition for Frame, we put the content. Here, let me just go into custom partition. So let me go into CP source. I can go into apps, and if we can look now at the Nutanix Frame. So what we did was when we published the stuff for the custom partition for this, and then Marco at Nutanix looked at it, reviewed it. He did basically a fork, made some changes and enhancements that he wanted to do, and then did a pull request back to us. We reviewed it and added that in. So if I look at the history here for this, you can see that he did this kind of a request here and said, hey, I want to pull these pieces in, and he wanted to make a bunch of different changes. So I can see what it did. We reviewed it and accepted it and then dropped it in. So anyway, yeah, so we do that. So we look to collaborate not only within the community, but also with our IGEL partners, in this case with Nutanix Frame. So that's how you would do it.
That's cool. Cool. Yeah,
there's another
question
things coming from the chat from Erwin. When will it be the part 2 of the unified communication stuff? I mean, especially the VMware part. I would say we will communicate it in the community quite soon, because we have to check the date, check the availability of all persons. So Erwin, we will send out the events like usual in the IGEL community, but in the meantime, I would say stay tuned, check the documentation itself created by Lars, which is available in the IGEL community in the link I sent in the chat. And we will cover the VMware topic as soon as possible.
You bet. Hopefully we'll do it. Unfortunately, we have July 4th. Not unfortunately, I guess, but we have July 4th weekend coming up in just a few weeks, and that always sort of messes things up as far as, people take their holidays in the US. So we'll probably get to it or be able to do it maybe the second or third week of July, which seems like a long time from now, but just a hop, skip, and a jump away. So I think maybe we can do it sooner, but let's see.
And maybe one additional information from me. If there's something what is urgent and you need help, so please contact me directly or contact me in the community, and we'll definitely find a way that you get what you need and don't need to wait for the next session, because in the session it's an overall where I can mention all what is in the guide and what I have seen, but it's definitely even better if you have a special problem that we contact one by one.
You got it.
Yeah,
Just go ahead.
And then what I'm showing on the screen right now is, we went through and showed those custom partitions. So here's an example of an IGEL endpoint that's kind of, an IGEL book Microsoft edition, right? So we've got Conky here to kind of show performance of the system, but then we have Edge and Teams as custom partitions, right? So basically from this, now I've got Edge running natively on the endpoint. I'm into my Office 365, reading my email, looking at doing all that stuff there right within Edge browser native on the IGEL endpoint. And then again, here's Teams running natively on the IGEL endpoint. And you can see I'm in Teams, and all those custom partitions that I've built for our internal use, I've made, the full packages here. So the IGEL, SEs and stuff can grab the latest version of whatnot. So again, if you think of, hey, you may have a use case instead of a Chromebook getting to Microsoft 365, why not have an IGEL book Microsoft edition with Teams and Microsoft Edge running natively on the IGEL endpoint? And then you've got your WVD or your AVD. We'll need to change that. as everyone knows, it's now Azure Virtual Desktop. But anyway, you could have this, think about this, put it on a UD Pocket 2 with 32 gig of RAM, and you're good to go for having an IGEL book Microsoft Edition. You're in and going. So very cool.
It's so cool. When I joined IGEL, I saw the IGEL OS as not a thin client, but as a true operating system with custom partitions, you could really leverage this thing and make it into something like a real usable laptop or computer, besides just being required to remote with it, right? And Ron, you a lot of us, Sebastian thinks the same way, and I mean you definitely just right there is proof. It's really amazing what we can do, and I'm so glad that you've done that. Really kudos to you.
Sure. And basically, it's really anything that you can find that's Linux based, that runs on Ubuntu 18.04. You can go through and do it. You can look at those build scripts and just see everything that we did. So there's like Steam is a very complex one for the gaming side. There was a lot of things and missing libraries because it's 32-bit. So we had to grab all the 32-bit libraries. There's like 100 of them or something. I don't know. It was crazy. But anyway, we built it and automated the script to build the whole thing out. So yeah.
That's nuts. Yeah, I think David Feiner keeps you quite busy with his weird ideas for custom partitions, right?
Yeah, Spotify too. You want to run Spotify and listen to your music, you've got that. You want to with the Java web start, you could actually configure your IGEL endpoint to just go ahead and start the UMS. So you could just hit that URL on the UMS, it downloads the Java bit, the jar file, and then you just run it natively on the IGEL endpoint, so real simple.
I think we should really stop thinking about IGEL and thin client, Today
absolutely.
we had a customer, every time
this
IGEL one, they want to replace, and they said, no longer a thin client on the endpoint, but they want to go to WVD. So then you want to have a fat client for WVD? No sense, right?
Right.
Yeah. But a lot of the users, what we're seeing is that, hey, you can run a lot of this stuff natively on the IGEL endpoint and then get to your VDI for published apps. So if you ran Teams and Edge and stuff native on the IGEL endpoint, and then from your VDI, you'd have a published app. So if you need to get into Photoshop or your AutoCAD or whatever that is going to run on the your backend servers, then you go. Same thing, we have a custom partition here for, if I go into CP source, if I go into apps and look here is like, hey, we had a use case with HP and the HP Central Remote Boost, right? So basically animation studios, things like that. People went home, right? But they needed to get to their HP animation studio devices to work. So we built a custom partition for HPZ Central. You install it, and now you natively then just get right into and get in these animation studios, get right into their HP CAD systems and work. So very cool.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. This is the power of IGEL, right? It's all centrally managed, centrally deployed. Secure. I mean, I don't want to end up as a commercial, but it always blows my mind when you can really truly see what you can do with it. And Ron, you've definitely made that a heck of a lot easier, if not almost turnkey. So I really love it.
Yeah,
really love it.
Yeah, like Spotify. I was mentioning Spotify. So there's the build script. You can see all of these missing libraries that were missing that we needed to grab, put it all together, and when you're done, then you deploy it, and you've got your Spotify, on your IGEL endpoint. So anyway.
Well, perfect. Especially made me laugh on the message. Okay, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us, Lars, Udo, Ron, and of course my co-host and partner in crime there, Sebastian. Thank you all for attending. we'll definitely get back to you. I'll be sending out this. I always send out an email to everyone I registered with the link to download, and I'll let you guys know ASAP. I'll talk to Lars about a date, right away, and we'll hopefully I'll get that, scheduled real soon, and at least know real soon. So Lars, you're out there. Think about when you can do this, and yeah, thank you all for joining. I hope you enjoyed it. A lot of great content, and just really great. I hope you also wish you a very happy summer too. It's summer here in Berlin. It's nice weather, and tomorrow I'm actually going to go out to a beer garden for the first time in like a long time. So I couldn't be. I couldn't be happier, man.
Well, your liver might be complaining later, but no.
Well, I can drink like one beer because I haven't drank at all. I'm not a drinker by myself, or I don't drink at home. I drink with friends and stuff like that. I haven't been able to go anywhere, so I think like a half a beer, I'm gonna be like, ooh. So I'll be a cheap date.
Take care.
All right, thanks all.
Everybody.
Take care. This is fun.
Bye-bye. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Take care, all. Cheers.